May I say, Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt, and it cannot be disputed, that Jamaica parliamentarians are the lowest paid in the Caribbean and anywhere in the world. We're the lowest paid parliamentarians because we refuse to do what is necessary. Government after government refuse to institute the reports that we get from different committees. The last one was the Nigel Clarke committee in the 1980s. And I maintain that the government then even increased by 2% each year since then. Parliamentarians will be receiving a decent salary today. But every government refused to take that step to make the parliamentarians receive something out of fear. And we need to put fear behind us and do what is necessary so that parliamentarians can be compensated even for half of the work that they do, because you can never pay a parliamentarian for the task that he or she performs. But we shouldn't be speaking today about pension or salary for members of parliament. And I want to read in the records a letter dated March 13, 2014. My good friend and church brother, member Pickersgill, member from North West St. Catherine and member from Central Kingston, and other ministers, former ministers, discussed and mentioned repeatedly the lack of a proper pension for parliamentarians. There are parliamentarians who are getting more than $34,000 a month. There are ministers who are deputy prime minister, ambassador, and spoke to me, a friend of mine, that his pension was unable to pay even his rent. And if he can't pay the rent, how can he live? But the members of former ministers who are speaking today, it was within your court to have dealt with it. Parliament referred it to the former government to deal with it and was never dealt with, because each government refused to deal with it. On March 13, 2014, a letter was addressed to the Honorable Philip Paulwell, Deputy Leader of the House of Representatives. He said, "Dear Minister, we forward here for your attention a copy of the extract of the minutes of the Honorable House of Representatives dated 11th day of March 2014 regarding a private member's motion brought by Mr. Clifford Warmington, MP, St. Catherine Southwest. The motion was approved with an amendment to the prior, which states, be it resolved that the House call on the government through the Cabinet to establish a commission or committee of private citizens to review and recommend amendments to the Governor General Expenditure Personal Staff Tax Exemption Act and pensions. The Prime Minister Act to bring the Pension Prime Minister Act to bring the provisions with respect to the pensions and allowance in line with the provisions of the Retiring Allowance Legislative Act, or in the alternative, the Retiring Allowance Legislative Service Act be amended to reflect similar allowances and or benefits as provided under the Governor General Expenditure, Personal Staff Tax Exemption and Pension Act and the Pension Prime Minister's Act as the latter stood before 2008 amendment when Mr. Golden amended it then. We therefore invite you to submit the matter to Cabinet for its attention in accordance with the approved resolution. Yours faithfully, Edda E. Cook, JP, Mrs. Clerk of the House." This was on March 13, 2014. And on March 14, a letter was sent to Mr. Clifford Warmington, Member of Parliament. We forwarded it for your information, a certified copy of the extract of the minutes of the Honorable House of Representatives, dated the 11th day of March 2014, regarding private members' motion number 1 of 2013, which was approved with one amendment. The motion has been referred to the Minister of Science, Technology, Energy and Mining in his capacity as leader of the House, invited him to submit the matter to Cabinet for its attention. If you want, I can go through the resolution that we have here. Okay? It was for Cabinet, what I asked for then was for Cabinet to deal with the Pension Act, to review the Pension Act, either to bring the Prime Minister and the Governor General in line with the parliamentarian, or the parliamentarian in line with the Governor General and Prime Minister. Because the Prime Minister and the Governor General who retires gets a pension equal to the current Prime Minister and the current Governor General. The allowances they get, I think Governor General get 2 secretaries, the Prime Minister get 1. The Governor General get 2 housekeepers, the Prime Minister get 1. They get drivers, they get gardeners. We didn't ask for the allowances, but for the pension of parliamentarians to be equal to the provision made for Governor General and Prime Ministers. So, but this was sent to Cabinet and was not dealt with by the former Cabinet. And there are several members here today who served in the last Cabinet. Therefore, we should not be discussing this today. And the reason is that each government is afraid to touch this stuff because it's a lighted coal in your hand. May I say at this stage that I've insisted that this issue must be addressed. And having been back here as part of this government in 2016, I've been pushing this issue constantly. That if this issue was not addressed by the last Cabinet, this Cabinet at least must address it. And I can say to you now that at this stage, Cabinet submission is being done now for this to be resubmitted to Cabinet, that it can consider the issue of parliamentarians, that there can be a decent pension given to parliamentarians. So I can tell you at this stage, it's in the final stage of preparation to go to Cabinet. I just read it to you. The recommendation from the clerk that's sent to your House Leader. I just read it. The clerk is obligated, after the private member's motion goes to a committee, it comes back to the House approves the recommendation if it's so. Whatever, by way of Cabinet submission. Yes, but if it didn't come, it's a dereliction of duty by someone. But at this stage, I can tell you that the submission is now being prepared, whereby this leader of the House who just spoke today will have to take it to Cabinet so that the wish of Parliament will be respected. But this should have been done before. But I can tell you the final draft, the final draft is not being done, and he asked me to review it. So I can read somewhere. So, yes, not an interrupt. So it's been when it will come to me shortly, I'll review it and advise him before it goes to Cabinet. But it is going to Cabinet, whereby we can be recognized and whereby the proper pension can be given to parliamentarians, because some can't afford it. Mr. Speaker, thank you.